Why don't you kick things off? Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining today's session. The topic is how to compete and win high-quality leads. As Tal mentioned, my name is Karim Nanji. I'm CEO of Inverite Insights, and I'll moderate this fun-packed half an hour of entertainment. So it's interesting with the group that we've got here. We've got a full house. In today's kind of competitive landscape where data is highly abundant, the challenges that lenders face are more than just generating leads. You're looking for high quality leads that you can convert and monetize into long-term value. So we've got a panel of guests here, and we're going to explore some strategies and insights on how, and some of the best practices and ideas on how you could not only generate, but capture, nurture, and convert, monetize these high-quality leads into long-term growth and success. So on the panel today, we have Mona Afzal, Director at Scotiabank, Nicky Senyard, CEO and founder at Fintel Connect, and Scott Satov, CEO and founder at Loans Canada. So, Nicky, let's... Busted. Okay. So, the way to start, okay, Nicky, let's just start kind of high level. What are the ingredients to a successful lead generation strategy?
For me, everybody here? Microphone working? Yes? I don't think so either. Turn it on. That working? No. Now it is.
Yeah, there you
go. Okay. Hi. I think the thing is about meeting customers where they're at and giving them the information that they're looking for at the time. It's not complicated, and it's not different from other areas of lead generation. It's just the fact in this area, it's a very varied field, like from credit cards through to mortgages to personal loans, and then in personal loans, there's a lot of differences in all of that as well. So I think the thing that we see that works consistently across all verticals is just making sure that you're where the customer needs to be when they're looking for that opportunity. We know that they're searching online, they're researching online, and they're talking to their friends. So it's about being in the conversation and making sure that they've got access to the information that they're needing to be able to make that decision. It's not very complicated. But I think what happens is that when people start to get into product development and they start to get into marketing and they start to get into compliance, it just becomes a lot more, they perceive it to be more complicated. But at the end of the day, we're providing a service and solving a problem for the people that we want to interact with. So begin with the end in mind and begin with the customer and work back from what your business's perspective is. So that's the way that I would approach the question.
So Scott, like adding to what Nicky said, where do you see lenders getting it right or wrong?
One of the things I liked that she said was the intent, which is really the most important thing. The client, there's so many opportunities for the client online. There's so many different sources dragging him here. When you get a client in the right place at the right time, you also have to have the right solution, a frictionless, easy solution that could take the customer from quickly to the end point. And also providing them with the right product at the right time is very important. So it's a bunch of different things at the right time, at the right place to gain a conversion. And if you have the right technology, be able to post it back to the people that need to have that information.
That's the key point, just meeting the customer, like you said, at the right place, right, in the process. Mona, how has the competitive landscape changed over the years? What are the trends that
you get the hard one?
I get the hard one. Okay, look, I'm pretty sure I turned this on. Yeah. Okay, so I think the first thing is I think there's a lot more data available. Like the breadcrumbs are everywhere from a customer perspective, and it's how we utilize that data that is going to be fundamental in having that competitive advantage. I think the reality is everyone's doing similar things. Like there isn't a really significant differentiating factor from a product or offer perspective. It's the moment in time, the way we engage with our customers, that's what's going to differentiate the experience. And the experience we deliver as an organization, whether it's through the onboarding journeys or through the personalization in those experiences, that's going to create that opportunity to scale and accelerate growth.
So you mentioned delivery. So what are the most effective marketing channels for leads in the lending industry?
Well,
Can I answer that one?
Sure.
Nikki just wants. Nikki just
No.
wants.
Doing an absolute shameless plug, so I'm moving on.
But we'll get to you. So now that we know.
Well, I will say on behalf of Nikki, I think affiliates does play a huge role for us from a lending perspective. But the reality is, clients are always looking to research in places where they feel informed and they feel like they're getting the most information with the best organization of that information. And I think the network of affiliates are a really optimal place. I think there's other channels, of course, search, marketing. I think there's a lot of great AI tools and technologies that are coming into the market today that are really elevating that practice. And a lot of the partners and publishers and sort of partners from a media perspective are leveraging that effectively. But I think there's still this intuitive need to use an ecosystem like the affiliate channel where there is a knowledge of the financial service products that is present.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Is that I actually think, and that's what we work with our clients on, is that it's a recipe of places. Like publishers and affiliates do drive a lot of growth in the lending space, and they're at the intent level. You still need to build awareness. You still need to take consideration into consideration. So for me, it's about the recipe of channels. All channels play a part. And I think what the deal is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each of those channels and then creating the recipe that works. I mean, of course, we think publishers are the most amazing and affiliates are great, but the fact is that it can't work in isolation. So that's the reason that it all works in together.
Interesting. You mentioned measuring. So Scott, here's an easy one for you. How can lenders effectively measure the quality of their leads and their process in general?
I'm going to add on to what Nikki said, and I agree with her 100%. When we first started, we were only organic, and that was the greatest thing in the world until you got hit with a Google update. And then we realized over the years that diversified channels are really the way to go, but you have to build technology into those channels, you have to build tools, you have to build a way to test those channels and make sure that the end user is getting the right product at the right time. So you learn over the years, and I guess the value that some of the brokers or the marketplaces add is by taking a lead and testing it, verifying it, adding more data to it,
And building trust along the process. with
building
the
trust. And that's the other thing, is that the brand is so important too. If your brand is a little off, if the process is a little off, that tiniest bit, I think a user can pick that up and he'll just leave the process, he'll stop applying. One little thing, one little no lock in your bar or something silly like that is very, very important.
You could answer.
I'm going to add that I think there's a sense of, especially at large organizations like Scotiabank, but in general in financial institutions, there is a real need to level set at executive level. And this is where having really robust scorecards and having KPIs and metrics that are setting this level setting for everybody in terms of what is it that we're basing our success and our failures off of. And I think that is fundamental regardless of what ecosystem you look at or what channel you look at, because that builds the ethos of how we define successful campaigns, successful measurements, successful outcomes, essentially.
So go ahead, Nicky. I want to come back to you on something you said.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of days is that different points in the conversion funnel are success to different organizations, one, and then also different products have different legal ramifications on those conversion points. So to what we were talking about is the transparency is knowing to what you're tracking towards. So in the cases of credit cards, for us, it's an approval of an application. But for a mortgage, it may be just a lead because of the sets of circumstances that you're in. But if you don't have that begin with the end in mind and understand what the metrics that you're tracking to, and then the quality metrics, because we always talk about volume, quality, and then efficiency. And so all of those things have to play in as you grow a channel and scale it. And to the point, you need to test and you need to understand what's not working quickly so that you can rectify it. And it could be the product, it could be the onboarding journey sucks. You know, there's a whole lot of things. We've all gone through onboarding journeys and going, who created this? Because it's not intuitive and it doesn't meet the customer where they're talking about.
Interesting. So Mona, what are some of these best practices for nurturing leads and getting them, moving them through the funnel?
I think experiences is sort of the bread and butter of everything we do. I think data is foundational to that. I think to Nicky's point earlier, knowing what's happening in the onboarding flow and that conversion journey and knowing where the drop-offs are and sort of optimizing and fine-tuning those to make sure that the experience that the customers are looking for is really optimal. Like simple things like making sure we have a lot of immigration changes happening, having foreign ID verification, making sure that's available to clients so that we can make it easy and accessible to do business. And it's not about just sort of the product, but the value that product adds to that client's life. And how do you bring those two pieces together is really what's going to enable us to have success across the board.
So you mentioned the word data. So Nicky, what is the connection between data and defining what a high quality lead is?
Again, each institution that we work with has different metrics, but one of the things that we've been leaning a lot into lately is vintage data. Because what you can do then is you can see the quality of the client over time. And it could be new to institution, it could be things like being active on accounts over a period of time, like active with a credit card, or it could actually just be the consistency of which they pay their loan back over time. But each institution that we work with has slightly different emphasis on those types of factors. So I think what it is what we try to do is ask the question is what is the highest value metrics for our clients so that we can make sure that we're measuring towards them and then feeding back that data.
So Scott, what are some of the trends or what are some of the things that's new in 2024 that'll continue to next year?
Sure.
Is traditional marketing making a comeback? What do you see?
I'm not sure about that. Thank God.
We'll do digital.
But I do think traditional marketing has a place for brands. We all hate traditional marketing because you can't measure it and you can't convert it and it's very difficult. Definitely online, there's been a lot of different companies that are offering marketplaces and like Nicky's doing a great job and different sources. And I think they're making it more understanding how to get affiliates, how broad they could be, and different verticals like using paid more effectively is very, very important. And just broadening your channels is the way to go. And of course, adding to the technology of your platform so that you're always on the cutting edge and getting the most data quickly, efficiently. So I think those are some of the good trends.
Okay.
I'll probably add that I think there is, especially as you think about building awareness, building consideration, there is a need for traditional marketing. It does create that ecosystem where you're bringing the top of mind awareness to the clients, especially where you're building brand positioning that's all about trust, right? Everything we do is really about trust and loyalty and sort of building that resonance with your clients. And so a brand, and at a brand level, to your point, is really what drives that. And so there is certain metrics that we can measure and things like incrementality testing that we can do to help understand the value that that brings. But I think in the end of the day, it's really around how do your customers feel about you? And how are you making sure that when there's life inflection points, that those positionings in the different ecosystems are helping to get them down that journey path?
Just one of the things that I'm wanting to add to this which is building the trust and where it comes from, is the importance of compliance in all of this. It's sort of like related to marketing. Sometimes compliance is the dirty word. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at integrating compliance and making sure that the tail isn't wagging the dog. So making sure that everything is in the right order with the right emphasis. And I think that's really important for us as growth engines for a business. I don't think product, marketing, or compliance each have equal weight at stages as a product's developing and as we're growing it, but to be understanding that compliance does have a role in all of this because of the safety element and because of the regulations, And I think we were talking about regulations just before and in the conversation, and like anything, regulations are there to protect the customer, but it has to move with the customer's intelligence and understanding as digital moves. So things that were worthwhile for compliance and protection 15 years ago aren't going to be as relevant now because the digital experience has changed so much, and security's changed and those sorts of things. So I think we as growth engines in a business need to understand the power of compliance and how to utilize it as opposed to fight against it.
So do you guys find that, sorry, Mona, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I think having compliance is, it sets a level of accountability, but also a level of baseline fundamental trust within an organization. Because we talk about trust to our clients, but there's also a level of trust that needs to happen at an organization level where they understand that there's a sort of fundamental practices in place that protect the organization. And I think compliance allows us to do that. And so building those practices enables us to do a lot more in a more agile and scalable fashion quickly.
So when you said accountability on who? On the organization that's generating?
On the organization,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that there's certain industries or intentions or products that consumers are more willing to share information a lot more readily? Yeah.
Financial services is probably one of the easiest ones, to be completely honest. Like,
Yeah.
I think we already have so much, data, but that's where regulatory and compliance becomes more fundamental because there's a level of trust the client has placed in you that's because of, right? And it's very similar to sort of the, think about hospitals and pharmaceuticals. Like, they have a very similar level of regulatory because it's a person's health.
Yeah.
This is a person's money. So those are things that people feel intuitively more protective of than what somebody is buying in a grocery store.
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference of like what you want to feel like they're feeling trust with.
Got it.
And I also find that different levels of consumer behavior, whether it's retail or whether it's finance, is that there is absolutely a different level of trust involved. And I think that's to Mona's point, which is where compliance comes in, and that's where we as custodians of this information or custodians of this consumer experience need to be very aware that people are placing a lot of trust in us to be able to do this. But that also makes it work. That's sort of like the ingredient that pivots it towards working.
Nicky, you make a very good point. We are custodians to that information. We have a responsibility to the consumer, and I think that will reflect over the long term with your company and your product and how you treat that data, and it definitely comes around. For years, we only said we're going to do white hat searches, we're not going to hold people's data, we're going to follow Castle. Cost us lots of money to be that compliant, but Chris and I sleep better at night, and we think that's the long-term. We've been 12 years in the business, and we're growing, and we think that's part of the long-term strategy to be fair with the consumer.
Are there any questions from the audience of topics that we did not cover? Here's a good chance to ask the experts. Sure.
What do you see as the biggest opportunity in the loan space currently? Vertical, product?
I mean, I'll talk a little bit. We all hate this new regulation with the change of the interest rates. It's going to hurt a lot of us who are big in the personal loan space. Obviously, the trend is using your house, and more lenders are using that. And people that would otherwise not use their house are having no choice but to secure a loan. And even some of the lenders today, whether you're using a house to secure your loan or not, the fact that you're a homeowner will make it a viable loan opportunity. So things are changing.
Yeah, I think I was going to echo that, but also say there's a lot of immigration changes to the country, which is probably going to also have a significant impact in the lending space. Paired that with sort of the interest rate changes coming up, I think it's going to be a bit of a different demographic of clients that we're talking to, and a smaller pool of people too, to be completely honest. And so that probably makes the way we have to communicate even more important.
And my take on it would be that we're seeing a lot of innovative product coming in that is very niche based. And it'll be very interesting to see how they scale. So an alternative to the bigger banks and more established businesses, but very sort of like niche based. trying to actually service people where they're at under conditions that they're favorable to them.
So if any other questions? Anyone? No?
We've
If-
solved it. Is that what we're hearing? We've just solved it?
All right.
If, let's start with you, Nikki. If you had to share one bit of advice for our group here as we go towards a close, what would you recommend?
Intentionality, being intentional. And I know it's a very general word for a very specific topic, but what we see more often than not is success is when there is a very clear road map towards that what you're needing to achieve, and that everything behind and in front aligns. There is a lot of moving pieces that this industry and this market takes to work. And I think once you're very intentional and everybody aligns, it smooths over the friction points and the roadblocks. And I think that's what will make it work.
So how do you create consistency on the intentionality of it when you have buyers all with different preferences, right?
I think from our business perspective, it's really easy because what we do is focus on the objective of the client and the product. So every product could look the same on the outside, but when you understand the business drivers and the client that best suits that product, it's so easy. And to the certain extent, actually to the most extent, the consumers will be the decision makers. We are not the decision makers. The clients aren't the decision makers. It's the end consumer, the person that's out there that are actually what we see ourselves as giving them choice. And once they have the choice to be where they need to be when they make the decision, it's where they'll get the best product for them. Because ultimately, all of our responsibilities here are to put it on a silver platter for them to take what they need.
Right.
And that's where the intentionality comes, is to be very deliberate. And we had this conversation, being very deliberate to know who your customer is, what you want to achieve, and how your business makes money from that. And if all of that aligns, then you're in a position where you're not going to be sort of tripping over your own feet to try to get to where you need to be.
Mona, Scott, you concur? Any comments?
I definitely agree. I think I will say, though, there is this concept of value and volume working together.
Yeah.
I don't think they're separate pieces, and I don't think one works without the other. Because I was looking at the title of our conversation today on high quality leads, and I'm like, there's no such thing as quality without the volume to help bring that quality together. And I think there's a lot of tools and technology that's coming into play that allows us to bring that volume while focusing in on bringing in the quality underpinning that volume, whether it's AI tools and capabilities, allowing us to think about things in a more holistic manner. But really, I think it's, are you driving the volume to your site? Are you to your storefront? Are you bringing the people who will actually consider you? And then are you converting them?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a thing that works together. It's not going to be ever separated out.
Interesting. Same, anything to add, Scott?
I mean, to get quality, you need quantity, so
Yeah.
that's how you sum it up, right? And you don't have quality till you have quantity. You need them both.
Any nuggets, Mona, you want to share with the group?
I think there is this sense that there's too much personalization in the world. And I don't know if it's ambiguous to everybody, but I think in an organization this size, there's this sense that you can personalize, but I think there's also this need to test and learn, because I think there is a balance of what personalization means. A lot of times I go to conferences and conversations and everyone's talking about sort of the need to personalize and hyper-personalize. There's actually probably something called too much personalization. You don't need to speak to every single individual at a one-to-one level. I think it's understanding sort of the groupings of people and how do you make sure that you're identifying with them and providing them value that they can resonate with, and use that as your baseline. And use that to be effective and efficient with your time and effort and people, because I don't think at a level where you have to talk to so many people, being that hyper-personalized can drive quality, it probably also eliminates quantity.
Scott?
Mona said it all.
So this concludes the entertainment portion of this afternoon's.
I think we had a question.
We did? Sorry.
Question in regards to AI. Are you guys getting more involved with AI for your
Definitely.
clients coming in?
Definitely, I think we see a lot of purposeful use of AI. I think, and I use that word quite intentionally because I think there is a need to be strategic in how we leverage AI and the places we leverage AI. Because there are certain places where we want to get to both quality and quantity together, where AI can play a really big role. But then there's other places where traditional marketing and traditional sort of initiatives and offers still need to be present. You still need that human component to help navigate that process.
Thank you. Anything else? We're good. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Appreciate your attendance. This was fun.